Okay, I'd like to call this evening's meeting of the Regional Planning Governing Board to order. We also will have a call to order of the Regional Planning Commission. But let's start off with a roll call for the Regional Planning Governing Board.
Jenny Breckes.
Here.
Naomi Dewar.
Here.
Paul McKenzie. Absent. Marsha Burke-Bigler. Absent. Charlene Bybee.
Here.
David Bobzien.
Here.
Donald Abbott. Here. Ed Lawson. Absent. Vaughn Hartung. Here. Jean Herman.
Here.
And non-voting member Veronica Frankel. Here. All right. Planning Commission. Frank Peterson. Here. James Fewens.
Here.
Diane Vanderwell.
Here.
James Barnes.
Here.
Sarah Chavilicek. Absent. Larry Chesney.
Here.
Ed Hawkins. Here. Kevin Weisky.
Here.
Peter Gower. Absent.
Okay, I think I'd like to ask Commissioner Weisky to lead us in the pledge this afternoon.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll move now to item 3, approval of the agenda for the Regional Planning Governing Board. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I call for approval of the agenda for Regional Planning Commission.
So moved. Commissioner Weisky.
I'll second.
Okay, I have first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, moving down to public comments. Item 4, I have 2 sign-in cards, I believe, for item 6A. Is there anyone else who would like to make general public comment at this time that did not fill out a card? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to item 5, the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, business of the day. A, discussion and possible action regarding the 2017 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan update. We'll welcome Lauren.
All right, so for the record, Lauren Knox, Regional Planning. So this evening, we're gonna go through the communication and engagement component of the 2017 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan update that has been drafted. As part of this, we're also gonna go through a draft roadshow presentation, as well as the first Metro Quest survey. All right, so let's jump into the community engagement component. So first, I want to note that the plan's really intended to be dynamic and involved throughout the process, and any feedback we receive from this group will be included in the plan. The goal of the communication and engagement component is to ensure that residents throughout Washoe County have multiple and diverse opportunities to participate in the plan update. To do this, staff has developed a multi-pronged approach, which has 7 methods to gather input, which we'll take an in-depth look at tonight. And then also the work that's already been completed is memorialized in the plan. This includes the development of the vision and directional statements and the creation of the Regional Plan Update Working Group. All right, so the first stage identified in the CEC allows us to gain a deeper understanding of citizens' thoughts and concerns related to growth. We also intend to gain insights into preferences and opinions of acceptable trade-offs. We anticipate that this first stage will occur between this evening and mid-October, which coincides with the release of the first MetroQuest survey and the planned roadshow presentations. For the next stage, we're going to utilize the information from this first survey to dig a little bit deeper and gain some input around some more specific topics. We also want to note that at the latter stage of the CEC and what that engagement kind of looks like is also going to be further refined when we bring a consultant on board. The CEC also describes our regional partners and our stakeholder groups. So our regional partners are defined as the local governments, affected entities, and other groups that are directly affected by the regional plan. And we expect that the most engagement with our regional partners is going to occur throughout the update process. We also have a stakeholder list, which includes groups that we plan to engage as focus groups or in community meetings and for expertise on various topics. The lists are located on page 9 and 10 of the CEC, or on pages 29 and 30 of your packet. And both of these groups are still being refined, so if there are any suggestions, we'll definitely take them tonight. All right, so I previously mentioned that there are 7 outreach methods listed in the plan, which you can see on the slide overhead, and we're going to get into each of those. So I'm sure at this point you're already all familiar that we're going to be utilizing MetroQuest. MetroQuest is a public engagement software that we're going to use as a survey and engagement tool. We've acquired a year-long contract in which we'll have the ability to create an unlimited number of surveys. The neat thing is that each response not only drives the content for the user of that specific survey, but also we intend to use the cumulative responses from one survey to dig deeper into the next survey. We'll actually be premiering our first MetroQuest survey a little bit later in this presentation, so hold tight for that. So TMRPA will also plan to collaborate with our regional partners and public agencies to gain access to email lists, which will help us to in turn create our own list. We intend to push some information to direct people to our surveys, to the webpage, to subscription lists, and make as many people aware as we can through this. And through email, we'll also provide updates in the form of newsletters, as we have in the past for items such as the housing study. You can see that on the slide overhead. So in-person presentations, or what we're kind of describing as roadshows, will be presented to various groups so that we can explain who we are, what we're doing, and then ask them to engage throughout the process. The idea here is to go to people instead of having them come to us. This has been described as being very successful. And we really intend to front load the engagement effort with these roadshows to really get ourselves out there, get people engaged. We developed a draft roadshow presentation, which we're going to provide in the next segment of this presentation. So we anticipate that we'll host a few general meetings to bring citizens together. And as we dive deeper into the update, we'll have some topic-specific meetings or focus groups. Also, we recognize that demographic-specific engagement will be needed, and we're working to identify who those groups are and determine the best way to engage with them. For example, we understand that language barriers pose challenges in surveys and meeting participation, so we've reached out to the Latino Research Center at UNR to assist us with that. And then this image is actually from the 2007 Regional Plan Update, so this is one of the larger community meetings. We've been also working to brand the update, which has been successful in both the Reno and Sparks update processes. Almost everyone recognizes the Ignite Sparks or the Reimagine Reno efforts. We've titled the update Plan Truckee Meadows, and we'll utilize the tagline Mapping Our Future. We've also developed a graphic, which you can see on the slide overhead. This method allows people to follow the update on social media, also through the use of identifiable hashtags and callouts. And then in terms of advertising, our goal was to use the low-cost, high-yield media buys to publicize the effort. We're currently refining kind of what that looks like and have identified a few methods. We're exploring the feasibility right now of placing ads and bill inserts in recreational programs. We also plan to launch various social media campaigns through our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube platforms. This has proven to be successful in an inexpensive or free way to capture a wide audience. And again, we anticipate utilizing identifiable hashtags and taglines. Okay, so we've acquired the plantruckeemeadows.org domain name, which links to our existing website, and it's going to be a page dedicated to the 2017 Regional Plan Update. So, let's see if I can get us there. All right, so on this page, you can see the banner. People can identify with it. We have a brief kind of description of what the regional plan is and why we're doing it. We have our subscription mailing list that people can sign up at. We're going to have the links to the various MetroQuest surveys here. We also have a timeline. That way people can know kind of where we're at in the update, which phase we're in, and where we're anticipated to go. You may remember we had flash votes, so this also can bring users to what those results were from previous flash votes. And then we have some additional resources, so access to the current plan as it exists. We have the land needs analysis, the housing study. We plan to put a few more things up here. Oops. All right, so before we move on to the roadshow, are there any questions or comments or any feedback on the community engagement component?
Councilman Breckus.
On those links on that front page, is the statute one of the links that you have there?
It's not right now, but that is a great suggestion. We'll put it there.
That is a great suggestion. Any other questions from?
I guess
Yep.
the question I
Councilwoman
have
Dorr.
is, over what period of time would this outreach be taking place?
So this will be throughout the whole update process. So
And-
we have the, kind of that first stage, which is really the kickoff to get all of the roadshow presentations out.
Yeah.
And that portion's through mid-October at this point, and then the rest of it will be through the update process, so basically through adoption.
So how long do you think that will be?
We're anticipating the beginning of adoption to be around April or May of 2018.
Okay, so a year and a half-ish, or a year, well, 6 months, I guess.
Well, about a year, yeah,
Okay.
a little bit less.
So are you going to this roadshow you're about to show us? I mean, how many of those are you planning? I assume that's part of your outreach.
Yes, we're planning to front load that, so that would be probably a meeting every single day through September into the beginning of October.
Okay, wow.
That's really to kind of be the big,
Okay,
here's who we are, here's our website, come engage.
okay, cool. Thank you.
Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lauren, will we have access to the information along the way that you guys are gathering? So we'll be getting constant updates as to what is important to constituents?
Absolutely, so we'll plan to check back often with
And,
you both together and separately.
and will we know where those comments came from? In other words, in the county, District 4, District 5, and
Yeah.
or District 3, District 1, District 2?
Right, so the beauty with the MetroQuest survey is it allows us to capture by zip code.
Okay.
So we can sort our answers that way, we can get demographic information, we can kind of dissect the information we receive, and then we can provide that back to you.
Okay, because, some of us, we overlap.
Mhm.
City of Sparks,
Right.
City of Reno, Washoe County. So it'd be good to kind of know
Get an idea.
what kind of comments are coming from the, the different areas and the different demographics. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any of the planning commissioners have any questions? Okay.
All right, then I'll turn it over
So
to Nate.
just one comment and one suggestion from me. Very exhaustive list of the engagement targets in the different organizations. One organization that I thought we should add to this list, though, under natural resources, specifically is the Nature Conservancy, for the reason that they're engaging, and I think a number of us here are familiar with this, in a Sierra Forest Health initiative that is primarily focused around watershed quality and health. And I think there's tremendous overlap potential for our efforts with what they're doing. So that would be another organization to include.
Perfect, we will add that.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Bybee.
While we're on the topic of looking at what groups, stakeholders that we'd be looking at, one thing that I noticed might be missing is reaching out to nonprofit and service organizations who are very engaged in the community, and different nonprofits or different service organizations, whether it's Rotary or Junior League or whatever, as well as nonprofits. A lot of what their missions are and what their direction on what they do in the community, what they raise money for, where their hours go to, is really intertwined to things that are happening in the community. So I think that they're invested in the community, and it might be good to add them. The other one I was looking at is, are we targeting millennials somehow? I know you have the university down, but do we have young student groups, young professionals, something to get that millennial voice? And I don't know if it's students or different organizations that would bring that perspective to the table too.
Yeah, we'll look into that one.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One other thing. You might want to add citizens advisory boards and NABs.
We
Are they in there?
think we had them in there, yeah.
It's an exhaustive list. I see the GIDs.
I think it might be on the next page.
Mr. Chair, if I may, they're on page 30,
Oh, it's
under
probably on the next
government
page.
boards and
There it is.
commissions.
Okay,
Find it.
Okay, we got that?
got it.
Okay, very good. All right,
Overwhelming.
think we can now continue. Great.
All right, I'll turn
Excellent.
it over to Nate Kusha for the roadshow presentation.
Good evening, board and commission members. For the record, Nate Kusha, Regional Planning. So as Lauren stated earlier, we have created a presentation that we plan to take out and present to as many groups and people that we can. The presentation is intended to let the audience know who we are, what we do, and how to engage throughout the update process. We're going to go ahead and show you what we have created so far with the understanding that it is still in draft form, but we would love to hear any feedback that you may have. The first part of the video is pretty self-explanatory, so I'm going to just let that play through, but in the later part, there will be some narration to help provide some context. All right, so in this part, we are showing the population forecast from the consensus forecast. The orange hexagons will show areas of future residential growth, and the yellow hexagons will show future employment growth. Now we're going to be showing our development tracking. This is going to show our tentative maps and plan unit developments that we track. And when we present these, we will narrate these parts, but we are also plan to add some text over these so that you can view them on social media without kind of some sound. And this section, we're going to show some scenario planning. We're going to show some potential futures based on development type. And here would be our conclusion to our presentation, and this would be where we would direct people to our update website and to the various social media sites to help keep them engaged throughout the process. And we'll also direct them to our MetroQuest through the website itself. So any feedback you guys have from that would be welcome, and we'll take any of that.
Councilwoman Bregas.
You know, I like the image of, the development potential, but perhaps as Mr. Bobzine and I will talk about during announcements, the potential and the map as it is under the adopted plan today is not necessary, it's the leaping off point, but it's not necessarily the determined future,
Right.
So that's kind of a nuance that maybe if I was working on that image, I'd somehow show, while the regional master plan of, was it 20, what year was it that we adopted it last?
2012.
12?
I believe. Yep.
Yeah, well, the 2012, is the leaping off point, because, and we'll talk about a change, there's a change condition of development potential that, Reno's looking at. has
Yeah,
been
we can definitely change that
Something,
image
yeah,
around a
something
little bit.
nuanced like that.
Yep.
I
We'll
would,
take
I
that in
would
consideration.
Councilwoman Bybee.
In the beginning opening, is there going to be music or narrative or something going on?
We didn't have music set up yet, but there
Okay.
will be some
There'll be
music playing
audio.
throughout. Yeah.
I'm just thinking to grab people's attention.
Yeah, there will be definitely some audio. We're working on putting music in right now, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilman Dorr.
I really enjoyed, the information about the agency. I thought there might have been maybe a few too many slides about that.
Okay.
And I thought that you got the point across really well in the first couple, and then there was maybe about 5, or at least seemed like that to me. And I thought that you could dive in a little quicker into the
Okay.
meat of where you're
We had
going.
discussed scaling back a little bit, so we can
You
definitely
had.
do that, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or feedback?
Anything from Planning Commission? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you guys. I will hand it back over to Lauren, who will take you through our first MetroQuest survey.
Great, thanks.
All right. Just bear with me for a second here. Okay, so this is a demo of our first MetroQuest survey. I just want to note right now, this is a demo page, so this is not going to capture what I'm about to put in there. We will have the opportunity to have anyone who wants to take the MetroQuest survey, the live version, is ready to go basically right after this presentation. So you are welcome to take it from your laptops, your mobile devices, your iPads, tablets, and we'll also have a few set up in the back, so feel free to engage on that piece. So with MetroQuest, basically this first screen is really an introduction. So we're introducing people to the regional plan update. There's some bullets down here that help us to explain what the update is, why we're doing it, what the regional plan is, and why it's important to be engaged. So we'll go ahead and begin. And then each page pops up with a little bit of a description on what it is that the user's supposed to do. So we know what we're gonna do, so I'm just gonna close this out here. And then our first page is really about ranking concerns. So the user is asked to rank their top 3 concerns for growth in the region. So each one of these items that we've identified so far, they have an example of what that means, and also a picture. Sometimes a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? We also have the ability for people to suggest another concern that they have, and this is actually throughout the MetroQuest, which is really helpful because people sometimes have a lot to say that we don't have here and we can't capture here. So I'm just arbitrarily picking 3. This is not my opinion here at all. I'm just going to pick the top 3. All right, and then we go to the next task. And the deal with the next task is it's actually linked to that first page. So the top 3 concerns that I picked are going to show up over here. And basically, we're digging a little bit deeper. So we are asking now, okay, you said that this was a concern. What are the challenges that you see that we may face? And so we've provided some. You can check as many as you want. And also, you have the ability to add in more. So that's through all of them. And then the next screen is about trade-offs. So these are just some general trade-off questions. So we ask first about growth, so how do you think we should grow? And it kind of forces the user to pick one or the other, or you can stay neutral. So we ask about growth. We ask about what type of housing does our region need. We ask about the type of transportation our region needs. And then we talk about how should we spend our public dollars. Okay, again, there's the option to comment here. And then on the last page, it's really kind of the thank you and the wrapped up. So you can see here, there are ties to our website, ties to our social media, the website, I just said that, sorry. And then we have some final questions. So this is some of the demographic information. So we ask for zip codes so that we can get a good idea of where people are located. We ask for age, and then we ask for an email address, which helps us to build our subscription list, and it helps us to push out more surveys to more people.
Yes, Commissioner.
If they don't fill out their zip code, their age, or their email address, can we just skip over that?
They can, yes.
So what you're telling me is that if I live in Fallon, I can fill this out?
Yes, so we've decided to not actually limit it to just residents in the area because we do have a lot of outside visitors. We hope that people will fill in the zip code so that we can sort that information, but it is able to be taken by anyone.
Think we'll get the same collaboration from, say, Story County?
Now. No, I mean, no, and this is I think from an instrument design standpoint, I'm looking forward to seeing data where we'll clearly be able to see self-identified people by different regions, whether they're in the planning region or they're out, whether they're from a neighboring county or not. And then we'll have a handful of folks that just, in order for us to boost our response rate, we're going to just allow that some people are not going to fill out that information.
If I may, Mr. Chair, the people who live in Story County may think that we should have rail systems going between, Washoe and say, Fernley or something of that nature, Fallon or Trick.
Great idea.
Which is a valid point, but I think we'll be able to sort by, okay, those responses, did those come from someone that was in a neighboring county? Was it someone that was in the planning area? Or was it someone that didn't respond at all? And then, you can assign your own interpretation to that.
So my question comes back to who gets to fund that? Because if it's Washington County that gets to fund all of that, then it gets to be disproportionate in that. And they get the input, but, there's no distinct funding mechanism for participation. I'll leave it at that.
I see what you're saying, but I would also say that this is an incremental marginal cost that, I think at the end of the day, it'll be fascinating to see at the end of the day how many people actually, what percentage of the responses are truly not identified demographically or by zip code, by area.
Right.
I don't
We
know.
hope everyone will put that information.
Yes.
But, you're right.
We can get them to buy in on our RIP program.
Maybe later.
Okay, any other questions from the governing board?
Any questions from Planning Commissioner?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Weisky?
thank you. Lauren, is there a benefit or a reason that was chosen not to make those fields, at least the field of zip code, be mandatory?
I don't know that we have the ability to make it mandatory. We can certainly look into that option. I don't know that we have that ability, though.
Okay,
But we can look into it.
thank you.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair, if I may, we did do research in terms of kind of survey responses and results around this particular piece. In the end, we decided not to kind of go with mandatory because we wanted to encourage participation. And so that's when the research that we did, the folks we talked with, who both did Reno, Sparks, we talked to the gentleman who does this in Portland. That was kind of the advice that we got, was to go ahead and keep it more open and not make it mandatory. So that's the other reason why we went that way.
And just a quick question on that to follow that thread. Was there any discussion of what a projected response rate would be by, not response rate, but what would be the proportion of the folks that we can expect would not fill out that information? Did they have a general sense of, yeah, you can expect 10% are not going to do it, or was there any discussion of that?
We didn't actually discuss that with either MetroQuest or some of the other folks. What we talked more about was the participation rate itself,
Generally.
just in general, and that we're shooting for a 2% participation rate, which is statistically valid, and roughly comes out to approximately 9,000 people.
Okay.
And if I may also note on that piece specifically, what MetroQuest actually found was that having this question at the end of the survey actually has more people entering that information.
Oh, absolutely.
So they
Yeah,
feel more
they've come
invested
this
in
far,
it.
they're
Yes.
invested, and I think there's a certain amount of and I want this response to count, so I'm going to make it very clear that, yes, I'm a constituent.
Yep.
So, okay, and with that, I think we had, Councilwoman Bybee had a question. We may have another round over here, so let's, Councilwoman Bybee.
Lauren, my concern, and maybe you can answer it when you're going out to the specific groups, is with senior citizens and those, and people in general who are not comfortable with technology. And even though I love this whole survey, I love what you're asking, I love the pop-up screens that are explaining like a category that, even though I'm on planning, I might not understand. So the survey is very user-friendly and is amazing. But for those that just get panicked over technology, how do we get their input, and have you thought about how we can increase participation?
Yeah, so a couple things that we discussed internally was we can take this out to people and actually walk them through it. So we can come tablet, laptop in hand, and walk them through it and help out and help, where you're supposed to click, what you're supposed to do next. So that's one option that we looked at. And another one is we are going to have some focus group meetings and some community meetings where we'll also be just taking down information like you normally would, right? So you're at a table, someone's jotting down notes, there are questions. So we hope that we can capture that audience both in those ways.
Trustee Frankel.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Relatedly, I was interested in knowing what thoughts you have and strategies you're thinking about for reaching out to Spanish-speaking members of our community. So I imagine that some of the same strategies might apply, but could you speak to that as well?
Yeah, so we have been working with the Latino Research Center with UNR. So we are looking to get some translators and trying to figure out the best way to approach that community to get the most input and engagement. We're still working on refining that piece though, so any suggestions?
So, and my sense is it's not going to be available in Spanish as a survey itself.
Right, we talked about that, and we talked about that with MetroQuest and in terms of what they've seen through other people's surveys, and they don't get a big response rate if it's in Spanish. They get more, we found that people get more of a response if you go out and you have translators there and working with people specifically.
Exactly.
Kim, would you like to speak to that at all also, in terms of?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The other approach that we're using is definitely in working with the Latino Research Center, in addition to a variety of other folks, kind of doing more specific focused groups to ensure that we engage a variety of our populations in the community. So that's definitely something that is a high priority for us, but we welcome all assistance on that.
And part of that is also your agency's learning from the experiences in Sparks and Reno.
That's
with our
absolutely
programs.
correct.
I mean, I know, for instance, Reimagine Reno, we did a special one for, say, the Indian colony.
That's correct.
Okay, great, good. Any other questions? I'll go back to Commissioner Hartung in a second. Do we have any other questions from the governing board? Commissioner Hartung, and then I'll go to the Planning Commission. Yes.
Am I not on the governing board?
You're on the governing board, and then I'm going to recognize you again, and then we'll go to the Planning Commission.
Okay. I just- what was
Got
it?
demoted.
Joint
Back
meeting,
with us.
joint meeting, I know.
Planning Commission again, which is all good. I'm still concerned with outside entities influencing the opinion polls. And there's an old axiom with investing, and that's never take advice from someone who doesn't have skin in the game. And it's very tough. I can give you all the advice in the world if I don't have money on the table. It's no big deal. It's easy for me to tell you where you should spend your money.
Right.
So I'm a little concerned with that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Weisky and then Commissioner Chesney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lauren, the reason I asked specifically about the zip codes is I thought that might address Commissioner Hartung's concern. And although you can manipulate and put in any zip code you want, I know that I've been requested to fill out many of these surveys for lots of different things, professionally, personally, and I always stop when I get to the email, even if I've been 10 pages into it. The minute I have to give up my email address, then I bail out of it.
Right.
But a zip code, I wouldn't mind if that was a mandatory point of information, and that might resolve, and I would like to hear what your consultants say about just that one element, and if that will help resolve the concerns brought forward.
Yeah, that's something we can definitely look into, especially with just that one specific piece being mandatory. People may be still willing to just fill out just that part.
Sure, thank you.
We'll look into it.
Commissioner Chesney?
Yeah, my concern with the zip code is essentially the same.
if we can't geographically profile where the input's coming from, one particular zip code or neighborhood could front load the results in a tremendous effect. And so to me, and I've participated in many studies over the years, if you can't identify where the information and the input's coming from, the study's not worth anything.
Commissioner Gower.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lauren, I was just thinking back in some of the slides that you went through, and I got the impression when you were flipping through that the options were kind of a black and white, or, one end of the spectrum versus the other end of the spectrum. Was there discussion in putting it together of having like a middle option?
Are you talking about for the trade-offs? This page?
Yeah, and even the slides before that, like the transportation choices. I mean, there isn't really any sort of, option to think about it spatially. I mean, maybe as a region, we would want to have certain transportation choices in certain areas and different ones in other areas.
Yeah, so I think the discussion that we had was this is going to be more broad and general, and then based on kind of what we get from the survey inputs from here, say in regards to transportation, we can then have a MetroQuest survey based only on transportation, where we can start that digging deep basically to find out that kind of information. So we tried to keep this one more broad and general. It's difficult. We had all these ideas, but we can only condense it into these 3 things, right? Because users want a short time to take a survey. So
right.
We talked about that, and it'll be hopefully part of a further next survey.
But I do notice in some of the screens you have an area for comment. So I know when I get to that where I feel like I don't want to make this, choice between, one false dichotomy and another, I'm going to put my nuance into the comment field to make sure that.
Right.
So, okay.
Any other commissioners? Okay. No, it's quite all right.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Next step.
All right.
A
So
word
now
from
we
our
have
partners.
A word from our partners.
All right. Who wants to go first? Such enthusiasm on the part of our partners.
Good evening, Board and Commission. For the record, Daniel Inoue. I'm with the Washoe County Health District Air Quality Management Division. We have 2 main air quality challenges in our area. One is our wintertime fine particulate matter problem, and that's due to wood stoves. And then we also have a summertime ozone problem, and that is mostly related to transportation. So transportation is our largest source of ozone precursors. And that's why we have an Ozone Advance program, and that's a voluntary program to encourage things that reduce precursors to ozone and reduce and improve air quality as well. It targets 3 categories. One is technology, such as cleaner cars, zero-emission cars, behavior change related to carpooling and safe routes to school, and then also the built environment, and that's where this group is very key. To increase walkability also has some other co-benefits related to public health as well as environmental health. And the group that we really appreciate working with Ms. Robinson's group, and to help include the goals and priorities and strategies we have in our Ozone Advance program, to include that into the regional plan. So that's where I think our partnership is really strong, and this is our opportunity to get these things incorporated, not only to improve air quality, but to improve public health and the economy. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. I think I see Nancy Brown making her way up here. You want to put you on the spot? I know we got others.
Hello, thank you. I'm Nancy Brown. I'm the Director of Community Development for Charles Schwab Bank. We've been in Nevada 15 years, and we are supporting this program because it's very important for us to know in the area of community development what the greatest needs are for our investments. So especially around affordable housing, and we feel that this will give us some great information. And I do support outside participation. I do think that the zip codes are important. So if you want the money, I showed you the money. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. We are very appreciative of this public-private partnership. Mr. Ornelas.
Good evening, members of the Regional Planning Governing Board and Planning Commission. I'm Armando Ornelas. I'm the Assistant Community Services Director for the City of Sparks. And I can say I am looking forward to receiving the results of the input process that you'll be conducting for community engagement. I'm looking forward even more to taking that information and working with my colleagues at Regional Planning and the City of Reno and Washoe County and the various other agencies that are going to be involved in this process to start developing goals and policies for the regional plan that ultimately the Regional Planning Commission and the Regional Planning Governing Board will have the final say on. In my view, this regional plan update is critically important if we are to address the various opportunities and challenges that we need to reach some consensus on as a region to be successful. So with that, if you have any questions for me, I'm addressing.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Chris Wessel. I'm with the Western Regional Water Commission. The Western Regional Water Commission is a regional agency for doing long-term regional water planning for our area. Our planning area is essentially the same as the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Area, with some exceptions. Our focus is to develop a 20-year regional plan in cooperation with water agencies, utilities, and the main goal of that is to identify areas where we can find and identify issues and hopefully come up with proactive solutions versus reactive ones. To this end, the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning is a key partner for us. We rely on them heavily to help us in our understanding of how the community grows. We collaborate in a number of projects, a couple to mention: population employment modeling, industrial lands needs analysis, scenario growth planning, stormwater GIS mapping. That's just a few. In addition, the Western Regional Water Commission is required to provide an understanding of sustainable water resources to meet with the with the consensus forecast population, which is done every 2 years, and TMRPA is obviously a key member in developing that census forecast, so we rely on them heavily for that purpose. So, with these collaborative efforts, Western Regional Water Commission and the TMRPA have a good working relationship, and we have great synergy, and we're really looking forward to participating in this process. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, board and commission members. My name is Chad Giesinger, Senior Planner with Washoe County Community Services Department, Planning and Building Division. Keep my words short tonight. Basically, I'm just here to let you know that Washoe County is fully engaged and committed to this update process. We are participating in the update working committee that is now meeting weekly. And the county believes this is such an important endeavor that we actually have designated 4 total staff members to be engaged. That way we have some redundancy and some background. We have the Director of Planning and Building as part of our team, myself, another very experienced planner, and then Planning Manager Bob Webb. So that's all I really wanted to convey to you tonight, and can answer any questions you may have. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Hello, Amy Cummings, Director of Planning at RTC. And RTC also very much appreciates the opportunity to participate in the development of the regional plan. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to continue those agency partnerships through Reimagine Reno, Ignite Sparks, and the 2040 Regional Transportation Plan, and keep that momentum going. And we're already working with Kim and staff at TMRPA to see how RTC can help support the community engagement effort through using the road ahead and our social media to team up and get the word out as much as we can. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Thomas.
Looks like I'm next. For the record, Bill Thomas, Assistant City Manager, City of Reno. Pleasure being here this evening. I do want to mirror what some of the other agencies have said, which is we're very committed to this process. We're kind of in a unique position in terms of providing information. We are on the last stretches of a 2-year planning process for our master plan, where we spent several $100,000, retained some very professional outside consultants, And a lot of the information relevant to your conversation earlier was not limited to City of Reno residents. So we did get a lot of feedback and information about people's perspective of what this area should look like. While it was Reno focused, I think the comments we got, my personal opinions, reflect very much what people in the community think. Just a couple thoughts. One of the big things right now is affordable housing. And we are attempting, not only as the City of Reno, but also with some of our regional partners like the Housing Authority, Washoe County, City of Sparks, to deal with that issue. I would suggest one of the big challenges for this group is going to be land supply. It's very clear that the issue related to housing is very much a part of supply and demand. And coming out of the recession where essentially we haven't been building anything, our state partners have done a very good job of bringing new employment here. That employment is here. I would suggest also that accommodation and dealing with what we know is already out there and coming should be a big part of the way we approach this. Whether we like it or not, and people will have opinions about it, my personal opinion is it's here. So we can choose to shape that. I don't know that it's worth a lot of effort talking about whether it was right or wrong to do what was done at the state level, but I do believe it's here. And I know from the City of Reno standpoint, we're spending a lot of time and energy addressing how we deal with that. So I guess in closing, I would only say that we, as the City of Reno staff, will be very willing to commit the time and resources to make sure this is a productive and fruitful planning process. Thank you.
Mr. Thomas, I'm going to put you on the spot for just one second. You referenced the Reimagine Reno process and the fact that the inputs that we got, you felt were very reflective of the community at large. Those inputs, there was over 6,000 obtained through online surveys, town hall meetings, in-person workshops, et cetera. The online survey, back to our zip code conversation that we had earlier, do you recall if that was, how did our process handle that?
I believe ours was similar to what you talked about, an optional. It wasn't, we didn't call out people if they either didn't put it in or it was in a zip code that wasn't the City of Reno.
Do you recall what number of or what proportion of responses online were identifiable versus not?
I think the majority of them were identifiable. Most people put in their zip code.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the number off the top of my head.
Okay.
I don't think it was a unusual number of people outside of either our region or our city. But certainly we can provide that information if there's concern on the board about what might happen in a situation like that.
Sure.
We feel very confident that the majority of the people who participated were in fact residents of Truckee Meadows. Mostly City of Reno residents, but residents of our area.
Okay. Okay. And that, again, is the wonderful thing that we have here, is that we have recent experiences in both Sparks and Reno to do this process. And so it's great to see that staff is not reinventing the wheel, but being wise stewards of resources and learning from those experiences. Great. I see another partner making her way up to the mic. Good evening.
Thank you very much. First, let me thank the governing board for one of your June meeting and agreeing to partner with Truckee Meadows Healthy Communities, Sharon Zetter, with Truckee Meadows Healthy Communities to establish affordable housing as a priority in the update for the regional plan. And this mechanism, will provide a tremendous resource for the contract partner that we are associating with, Enterprise, who has experience nationwide on exactly the kinds of issues, the challenges that we experience here in our community. And the information that is received from this will go a long way in the work that we are contracting with them to secure from each of the local municipalities their input, their priorities, their challenges, so that we can indeed assess all of that and bring to you a comprehensive regional plan. So we are very much supportive. And again, thank you for agreeing to include affordable housing as a priority in the plan. And we at Truckee Meadows Healthy Communities are working doggedly with Kim and her staff, and we look forward to bringing you a report and a comprehensive plan in short order. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sharon. Okay. That is a comprehensive roster of partners. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, I promise we're almost done.
I believe we have a question or a comment from Councilwoman Bybee.
Just a quick comment. I'm excited about jumping in and finally getting going on the regional plan update. And the partners that we have here today, I mean, just those who have just spoken, it really, I think it's going to be such a positive experience for all of us we are one region. And for all of us to be working together and to have this collaboration and everybody coming to the table full bore to really do it and do it right and look at, especially in times like this where we've seen so much change and the future today and tomorrow are so much different than 5 or 10 years ago. So it's critical right now because of the change we're seeing at warp speed in our community to address those changes in a positive manner. And I think I thank all the partners who are here today. And I once again want to give a shout out to Charles Schwab Bank and to Nancy Brown for your generosity in helping fund this, because that's an important piece for us to make sure this gets done. So, and good work from the staff. Thank you.
Well said.
All right, you can see the light, we're almost there. So just to recap really quickly, we went over the communication and engagement component of the update. We gave you a draft presentation of the roadshow. We debuted the MetroQuest survey, and we've heard from our partners. So there's a motion overhead, and we would need an action from both the RPC and the RPGB. I'm available for any questions you have.
Okay, from the governing board, I'll entertain a motion.
Yep. I will move to approve the communication engagement component of the 2017 regional plan update.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh,
It's okay.
little out of sync here
Little
because,
voting.
well, a little out of sync because we did not take public comment before that. So why don't we hold on that and we'll start that again. Apologies. Public comment. We have two. We have Katie Pace. We'd invite her to the mic first before we take action, and then we also have Alice Turlock following Katie. If you can be ready to join us. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Katie Pace. I am the Constituent Services Manager for the United States Senator Dean Heller. Thank you very much for allowing me to make a comment regarding tonight's announcement. I also like to thank the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency for their dedication to the development of the Truckee Meadows. Tonight, I would like to address the importance of community involvement. In my position as the Senator's office, we value input from constituents every day. Their experiences and insight help shape the services we provide. As this board embarks on the 5-year update to Truckee Meadows Regional Plan, you will also value input and feedback from the people who are affected in this growth that we are experiencing. During the community engagement component, TMRPA will be utilizing a software survey system as an excellent tool to collect direct quantitative data from its residents in an effort to help plan for the future. I'm here to encourage constituents to participate in this process and to have a voice in the community's development. Thank you again to everyone here tonight, and good luck in your endeavor.
Thank you, Ms. Pace. And I do want to recognize that I had a conversation with one of your colleagues from the Senator's office yesterday about this very subject. I've also had conversations with staff with Senator Cortez Masto and also Congressman Amadez. We know that the delegation is watching this, and we appreciate their engagement in this. So thank you. Next up, we have Alice Turlock. Tullock. Excuse me. Good evening.
Thank you, sir. That is a correction. It is Alice Tullock. I'm a unpaid citizen to be here, to be participating.
We need
See,
more
we're
of you.
banging down
We
your
need
door.
more of you to be engaged. Great.
I'm a retired environmental engineer, and so I'm here to maybe put a little more perspective on what you're undertaking. This is a process that you do every 5 years, and it looks at a 20-year horizon, but I would invite you actually to look at about a 50-year horizon. This is not business as usual. Again, we're in a very different environment, and Board Member Bybee, you said there are a lot of changes going on in our environment right now, and I wanted to bring out 3 of them that I think are very large in the world, but are going to bear on Washoe County in our planning process. I've done a number of general plans, master plans, regional plans, so I'm familiar with this process, and I can see how sometimes it kind of gets a kind of a quick once-over, but I invite you to really think big on this one. We have three things that are coming into our world. One is the end of cheap fossil fuels, and that means we're headed towards more renewables. And I think that we're discussing in our community, lots of folks are, about going to 100% renewables within the next several decades in this region. I think Nevada is clearly in a good place to do that. The second thing is we've seen climate change. We've seen the dead trees. We've seen the changes in air quality. We've seen the fires. We've seen the roasting hot July after a snow in June. So, we're seeing all kinds of crazy stuff. And the third factor that is very important is the massive amount of public and private debt that has accumulated in our country since the recession of 2008. And that's going to be a brake on the amount of things that we can do as public entities, because our finances nationwide are in a fairly fragile condition. Demographics as well are changing. We're getting to be an older population. We're very diverse populations, so I'm heartened to hear that that the staff has got the very large invitation list. But all those mean there's different economics as well that come to bear. So when this process is looking at scenarios, I invite you to not just look at sprawl versus density. We're looking at more nuanced ways of dealing with this community. And I invite you to think creatively. This is the time and place. We've got the next 6 months, 8 months to do this, and this is really the place to do it. With that, I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your continued engagement. Do we have any other?
We do. We have two more. We have Austin Osborne, and followed by that will be Jeff Pace.
Okay,
Pass.
wonderful. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Austin Osborne. I'm the Planning Director and Administrative Officer for Story County. This has been an interesting evening, and I just have a couple points to make. We appreciate you listening us and your document as a potential stakeholder, and we appreciate that. We'll gladly participate in this process. We recognize the challenges associated with the Interstate 80 corridor and the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center and overall Story County and how it relates to our neighbors. We finished our 2016 master plan not too long ago, and that master plan does give direction to staff and to our leadership to reach out regionally to folks such as yourselves and our other folks in our region. And we certainly look forward to doing that in accordance with our plan. And lastly, regarding your zip code matter, I just want to provide a reminder that most of Tri-Center and the Interstate 80 corridor in Lockwood and Story County is an 89434 Sparks zip code, and much of our Highlands residents are 89511 Reno zip code. As far as staff goes, we would be happy to fill out your survey and indicate Story County in that regard. Thank you.
The plot thickens. Okay, thank you. There you go, Commissioner.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Page. I'm the county manager for Lyon County. And a couple of points, I do agree with your concern about the zip code issue. But I think it's also important to understand that if you leave Fernley, Nevada at 6 o'clock in the morning, about 60% of that population leaving is coming to Reno Sparks to work. My wife spends all of my money in Reno shopping.
Thank you. Thank you to her. Please express our appreciation.
So I think it's to understand that when you get those comments from those outside zip codes, it's people who are in Truckee Meadows on a regular basis, either for work or for shopping or for recreation or for pleasure. So it's not just me saying that you guys should do this and I'm not going to pay for it. On the other side of that, I can tell you that Lyon County, as well as in talking with his boss, Story County, as well as Carson City, Douglas County, are very interested in what happens in the Truckee Meadows and how it affects what comes here. Unlike a lot of people that work for Lyon County, I'm a third-generation Lyon County resident. I've worked for Lyon County now for going on 32 years. So I've seen Lyon County when I started in 1985 with a population of about 13,000 people. watch us go through the 2000 to 2010, increase our population by 50.4%, and then watch us decline in 6 months to the highest unemployed in the nation, highest foreclosure in the nation. So we've had our ups and downs over the last two and a half, 3 decades. We learned from some lessons from what you folks went through, both growth and then the failing of the economy, and we're ready to move forward and do that. We're ready to partner with Reno, Sparks, Truckee Meadows, Washoe County to see what we can do to help each other out. My fire department in Fernley spends a majority of their time on traffic accidents on I-80 when Truckee Meadows or Story County can't get there because traffic's backed up. That's a total of 4 guys per shift, so when they're out of Fernley, so we're more than interested to sit down and work with you folks and develop regional solutions to the problems. I can't help you with your downtown, your other issues, but the outlying areas that affect us, we're more than willing to sit down and have that conversation, so thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you both for being here. Commissioner Hartung has been a tireless advocate for the need for us to have more of a mega-regional approach to these planning issues, and we may not, in the context of this plan update, get to that, but we're at least setting the table, and your participation here is part of that, so thank you.
As you well know, I have been a huge proponent of the regional governing board being a regional governing board, a true regional governing board, not just Washoe County, not just Truckee Meadows, where it would encompass Story, Lyon, Carson,
Right.
So I think that this is a good place to start. Obviously, that's a legislative issue, but I would like to see regional become truly what it is stated as regional.
Okay. Thank you. Any other public comment? I think that pretty much clears that for us. Okay, great. Thank you to all for your comments. And with that, we'll go to item 7.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Excuse me. Back to our action that we need to take. Back to the motion, Councilwoman Dorr. I believe you had a motion to accept.
I had moved to approve the communication engagement component of this 2017 regional plan update.
And we had a second from Councilwoman Bybee.
And I
Any
second.
discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Over to the Planning Commission.
I'll take a motion. Commissioner Weisky?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve the communication and engagement component of the 2017 regional plan update.
Commissioner Gower, I'll second.
Thank you. I have a first and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Come on, it's my first meeting. Come on. Okay, here we are. Item 7A for possible action, members and directors' reports. I know we will have one, but I'll wait and hear if we have any others from the governing board. So one that Councilman Breckus requested that I bring forward, and I'm happy to do so. We had a very interesting agenda item last night at council related to the TMSA rollback for Marshall Ranch. And I know Councilwoman Breckus will chime in here if I miss parts of this, but there was a few points to the discussion. The first being obviously a perfect example of what it means to be in the county versus being in the city's TMSA in terms of density and concurrency, provision of services, et cetera. But there was also a sequencing discussion of, was it more appropriate for perhaps the Regional Planning Governing Board to have a discussion first about these sorts of exchanges in TMSA versus having one entity or the other, be it the city or the county, make that sponsorship. So this may be a request for a future agenda item for a staff discussion or staff facilitated discussion of the governing board to kind of talk about it, but we wanted to put it on the governing board's radar, particularly as we go into this plan update where so much of the discussion is going to be related to TMSA, sphere of influence, et cetera. So Councilman Breckus, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and I've given a little bit of a thought about it since we had our discussion last night around 7:30, 8 o'clock. I had a long day. One thing we found going through our master plan process is that you can't stop all activity as you're redesigning your master plan. There's a pipeline, but you get to a point where you kind of want to say, hey, let's time out this and wait for the master plan to get done, and we'll build you into the system. And I think that is something that the big update that the most recent comprehensive update, was that the 2006 plan? The
2007?
2007 plan experienced. And what I think would be maybe worth conversation, in addition to just the Marshall Ranch one, is some ground rules. If there are pending requests for regional plan amendments during the update process, it may be a good idea for the regional governing board to adopt. I was thinking maybe the mechanism would be even a resolution somewhere along the lines of, whereas we're, doing our 5-year update, whereas, requests should be, could be considered or sponsored by the regional planning governing board. And that way, rather than Sparks coming in with a regional plan amendment that someone has approached them about, or us at Reno or the county, it gets all talked out here with those of us who are the keeper of the planning process and can say, that one's probably a hold, and get it mixed into the planning process. Because the planning process is probably going to hit the map a little bit. There may be a new mapping configurations, but it might be good to just have a ground rule that any amendments to the existing plan start. I think it should be best at the regional governing board because there could be, I think I'm seeing infrastructure ties. And so I don't know if that makes sense to anyone. Maybe the staff's going to mull it over when they meet with Kim on the technical review. But I think it would be a fair approach to, while we're in process, is any, and we might not see any, but there might be a utility corridor change that's really, a no-brainer, an easy one to move on. But this one that we have, I was prepared to say, let's not do it, but it's an interesting one because it's the first one we've seen that's a de-intensification of what is in Reno's, TMSA. And so we did go with it, and it will be coming to the Regional Planning Commission's next meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Councilwoman. Yeah, that was the heart of the sequencing conversation. And I think probably the best thing to do is, under the next agenda item, go ahead and request that as an agenda item for the next meeting, and then we'll get a full presentation and hear from Kim and hear from Norm. Councilman Dorr.
Yeah, and similarly, I brought up at that conversation that there was an area south of Mount Rose Highway that is in the county, but is in our sphere. And that group similarly wanted to roll back the sphere. And so we have like two at either end of Reno. We have one at the north end, which is in Reno, that want to not be in Reno. And we had one that's in the county. They had thought about becoming part of Reno, but then they changed their mind, but they're in our sphere, so they have to deal with us. So I'd love it if we can, so here's two different cases. Now in that case, they came to, I think, the Regional Planning Commission. And then you guys, I think, sent it to us, I think, is what I heard. So anyway, I really think it's timely to get some direction and input from everyone on the topic. So thanks for bringing it up.
Ms. Robinson, can you give a quick clarification on that?
Sure. Just to clarify, at the Regional Planning Commission earlier this month, what was sponsored was the amendment in terms of having the discussion. So basically, do we want to have the discussion around the piece, I believe we call it down at Steamboat. That's kind of a rough,
Steamboat Meadows area.
And so that has been sent to both Reno and Washoe County, and there's 90 days for kind of a response on that.
To the city and the county.
That's correct.
Oh, okay, so, great. But anyway, I guess the question is, what do we do right now? Is that the best way to handle all of these, different, they're both requesting the same thing, so, in different forums.
Great. Any other member or directors' reports from the governing board? Okay, and how do we handle this? This can also be for the planning commission, correct? Oh, and you have your director's report, so we'll hear from the members first, and then we'll kick it over to the director.
Any commissioners have anything? Okay.
Ms. Robinson.
What I hear here is I get 2 directors' reports. Just kidding. Yeah, exactly. You want
You
yours.
going to do that in an evening meeting? Okay.
Just really briefly, I want to say thank you to all of our partners who came this evening. We've got a variety of other folks in the room with us this evening, including the school district and the airport authority. We really appreciate you being here. And we're excited to be working with our partners and meeting weekly on the regional plan update. One last piece I'd like to share with you is as you leave this evening, so the survey is up. The survey's live, it's ready to be taken. The website has been launched, and we're going to have a variety of tablets and laptops, kind of, staff will have one each as you head out if you'd like to take it there. Otherwise, you can take it on your mobile phone. You can take it at home later where it's much more comfortable. Whatever your choice is, the point is please take it. Please take the survey, and please take
Give
the
us your
survey.
zip code.
Yeah, that's right. and start today. Start today
Before
taking
we
that.
require it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Oh, I have a question for Ms. Robinson.
Question from Councilwoman Breckus.
When does your RFP close?
The RFQ for
RFQ?
the, that's correct, September 1st.
Okay, so it's out right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Moving on to 7B, Legal Counsel's Report, Mr. Azevedo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Norm Azevedo. There's no legal reports at this time.
That's how we like it. All right, good. And 7C, Trustee Frankel, do you have a report for us this evening?
Well, I was surprised by that on the agenda, but thankfully
I wanted to
my
make sure
staff-
this was on the agenda. You don't feel like you have to, but I wanted to make sure.
Actually, there's a lot to share.
Okay, good.
There's
good.
a lot to share, and there's so much to share that I'm actually going to suggest that after I highlight some details, if folks are interested in a longer conversation, that might be a future agenda item to get an update at a more detailed level. Even though I know our Chief Operations Officer is here, I may put him on the spot if we have specific questions. But again, I'm going to suggest that we may have a presentation in the future on this. But again, we are thankful at the district for the opportunity to make much needed repairs in many of our schools and to build new schools, thankfully, due to the passage of WC1, because classroom conditions are critical for our educational environments for teaching and learning. What's going on right now, we have $20 million in repairs being spent this year in renovations, upgrades to existing schools, and we have budgeted at least $20 million to be spent every year moving forward. Some exciting news is that we're midway through the construction of the 22 classroom expansion of Damani Ranch High School, which will be completed during this school year. 3 new schools are in design right now and scheduled to open in August of 2019, middle schools in Spanish Springs and Sun Valley, and we've been moving forward on the Sun Valley purchase of the land. Made some great strides this week on that. And an elementary school in the South Meadows. I should mention there is a naming committee that has been formed to assist with the process of naming those schools. We are currently undertaking the due diligence work, performing the studies on traffic, soil, water, and more in exploration of making an offer to purchase part of the Wild Creek Golf Course. We have a need to replace the current Hug High School and hope to have a new school for Hug by August of 2021, and also be able to have additional space for overcrowding in Spanish Springs. The next round of new schools is going forward. We have plans to build 15 new schools over the upcoming decade, including the ongoing repairs to the schools. So a lot of work, a lot of hard work, a lot of very, very busy work, and I want to thank the members of the Capital Funding Protection Committee for being an important part of that community oversight process, and I know there are members here today, and so thank you for that. So like I said, there may be more questions about specifics. I think that if folks have questions specifically, I don't know if you want to entertain them now, but I would suggest perhaps a future agenda item if there are a lot of questions about the school building process.
Okay, I think with that, if there's no questions for Trustee Frankel, we'll move into item 8, request for future agenda items. And I think the way to capture that would be if you perhaps could facilitate a conversation with staff that's in the audience for the school district, with planning staff about some possible items for us to discuss. We could put those on the agenda and certainly make sure that those are front and center as we're moving into this plan update. And then I think the other agenda request that we had was related to the earlier discussion about TMSA and specifically as items are coming forward at the time when we're in this plan update and how the mechanics of that should work. Do we have any other requests for future agenda items from the governing board? Okay, seeing none,
Do we have any from the Planning Commission? Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to closing public comment, item 9.
I have none at this time.
Okay, we have none at this time. Do we have any written correspondence, item 10?
Mr. Chair, we do not.
Wonderful. Item 11, adjournment. Governing Board.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Governing Board's adjourned.
Motion from Regional Planning? Okay.
Second.
Have a first and second, all?
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.